Hello, it is Tuesday the 19th of March. I'm Joe, he's Ollie, and this is the Premier Live podcast. Coming up on today's show, we'll be talking about the coronavirus and what impact it's had on the Premier League, plus we'll be fixing Aston Villa and loads of your correspondence.
So, how are you on this fine day where we're quarantined, stuck inside of our own rooms?
Oh, well, we knew it was going to happen at some point. A bit different not being in the same room recording with each other, but we're trying to work hard and get these out for our followers, so got to do what we've got to do.
Oh, yeah,
It
no,
doesn't
exactly.
look like a particularly nice day outside, does it?
Doesn't it? Oh. No, obviously we're recording this right now at 11:30 in the morning, which usually wouldn't actually happen. It'd be more like 2 o'clock, and because it's Thursday, if we did record it today, it'd be more like 5 o'clock-ish that we'd record it, meaning that it most likely wouldn't get out today. But, you know, obviously with schools being closed, we are able to get it out, you know, as soon as possible. Hopefully with as little interference and as little time to do it as it did take last time. But no, obviously staying home, relaxing a bit, obviously having to do some work. You know, life's good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, more relaxing working at home as well, I found out today. First time I've properly done it and had to do proper schoolwork at home and taking notes, but I find it more relaxing, so you like to take your own time, go out, get a drink in between. It's quite nice, to be fair. Don't mind it at all.
Oh, no, exactly. My issue is I get distracted very easily, so yeah, that's a big issue.
Well, yeah, so should we move on to, like, the main talking point of this podcast now? So, like, the coronavirus. Obviously suspended all games in England, not just the Premier League, but all games in England have been suspended. How do you think the footballing world is going to recover from this?
I think it'll take a while. Obviously with Euro 2021 now taking place in... No, Euro 2020, now taking place in 2021. You know, obviously isn't good at all. You know, it'll affect everywhere, and obviously has affected everywhere. But I think once the media hype dies down, I think we will be back to normal. You know, obviously it'll be there, but we'll have vaccines by then. And, you know, obviously the media hype will die down, because right now it's new, and it's something that's never happened before, really. And now people see it, and they're basically scared, and the media are trying to make it worse for everyone, which, to be fair, is what happens usually.
Well, yeah, they're calling it a pandemic at the minute, and obviously everyone is panicking, but I'm pretty sure I read that you can only get this virus once. Like, you can only get it once. Once you have it, it will go away, and you'll never get it again. So, after a good 60-70% have got it, I think that it will then die down, it will be less risk, and you can start having mass gatherings again.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You know, the thing is, though, is that people are coming into the world every day, every second even, and, like, in a way it is kind of, hard, because if this thing, you know, does say you can, get it, once, but it never comes back to you again, basically, you're potentially even killing babies, you know, when they're first born, and, like, it could be very bad for the world of, like, you know, humanity, even, because, say, one of them babies that dies could have been, say, you know, the next Lionel Messi, the next Cristiano Ronaldo, but because of this coronavirus, that won't happen. You know, it's an issue, yes, but I don't think it's as big as the media is making it out to be. I think it is a bit strange how people are going into lockdown. Countries are going into lockdown completely. Everywhere's closed. But, like, it's not necessarily, that big a deal, I think, personally. But, obviously, don't want to get it. I'm feeling a bit like the symptoms, but still, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a cough or you have any symptoms, you stay at home. Self-isolate for 7 days. Now, we have a mate from school. He's self-isolating for 7 days because his brother, I think, has got it. So he's stuck at home for 7 days, but he's doing the right thing to protect the spread of it. So I think if everyone does that and self-isolate for a certain amount of time after someone has got it, that is the way that it's going to stop spreading as far and as quickly as it is at the minute.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I think...
Yeah, so moving on to... Oh, you carry on.
No, I think it could potentially be wiped out within the next 2 years. I don't think it's necessarily bad enough to kill people this quickly. But, you never know. Got to take precautions. Got to, try and do what's best for humanity altogether.
Yeah, got to contain it. So moving on to the actual football Premier League part of our Premier Live podcast. So obviously there's been lots of suggestions of what's going to happen to the Premier League, such as you either just write the season off now, carry it on in the summer when this has died down a bit, or just finish it as it is now. I don't know what you think about this, but I certainly don't think you can call the season off now or leave things as they are at the minute. I think the only possibility is to either carry on when this has all died down, or maybe have a league next season where you have 22 teams and you have Leeds and West Brom promoted from the Championship into the Premier League, and you only get 2 new teams in the Premier League, and you have a 22-team competition.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And say maybe the year after, instead of saying 5 teams going down, because that's quite a lot, that's more than even League One, where 4 teams go down. So, if you have, say, 3 teams that go down originally, and then obviously it says 22, have 4 teams that go down, then have 2 teams that come up the season afterwards, so the top 2. So it'll be more, vigorous, the Championship, to get the top spots. I think you then do that. So then once it's back, so there'll be 21 teams in the league the next year, which could be awkward for numbering, but oh well. What could potentially happen is that you just basically let 4 teams go down again, and then bring 2 teams back up, which I think would take it back up to 20, maybe. If not, bring up 3 teams, but I'm not sure. You'd bring up 3 teams, wouldn't you? Obviously, because that would bring it back up to 20. So that happens, and then it'd be done, really. The Premier League would be back to normal. But, obviously, last season, teams like, say, Brighton, who only just missed out on relegation by a few points and was in that, 16th spot, that could really go badly for them. Because, if the same had happened that season and people had, 4 teams gone down, they would be in the Championship right now and not playing Premier League football. So, they're not doing that in Germany, though. But if you think about it, the German second division isn't necessarily as, competitive as, say, the English second division. Because, English second division, there's a chance to play amongst the top teams in Europe, And it's like, not many leagues are able to do that. So, obviously, it's going to take a while to get back to how it was, but can't do much about that, and, you know, unless we do just null and void and give no trophies at all.
Yeah, well, I think we all knew that it's going to take some time to readjust and get back to normal from this situation. But
Yes.
even if it means that we finish this current Premier League season off at the minute, and just start the next season like January or something, and just play one round of games, it's better than just cancelling the current season we're in, with just like 70% complete. Like, that's something you can't do, because if it's 70% complete, it probably won't happen. But mathematically, Man City could still win the league. Probably won't happen, as I said. Liverpool probably win it anyway, but they're still mathematically possible. Again, very unlikely to happen, but Arsenal can still mathematically get relegated this season. And you know how tight it is down at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Anything could happen between, like, 19th and even to, like, Newcastle and 14th. Anything can happen there. And just the one thing the Premier League can't do is just cancel the season as it is now. They're having a meeting today, apparently, about what to do with the season. But they just need to know that they can't cancel the season now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I saw a tweet this morning, and it was talking about, say, if all the Premier League clubs decided to, you know, carry on with the season, but play it behind closed doors, you know, that would speak volumes of how much they care about their fans and their fan base. Because if you play that behind closed doors, and there's, say, someone who, I was at an under-23s game last year, and this one bloke hadn't missed a single Arsenal game, you know, since he first went. And say that bloke, say they called off the season, and like, basically, or didn't call it off, but played all the games behind closed doors, someone like him, you know, his record would basically be lost of going to every single Arsenal game, you know, since his first. And it's like,
Yeah.
it would speak volumes about how much they care about their fans and their fan base. So, you know, it's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, well, Pep Guardiola said that the one thing the Premier League can't do is play it behind closed doors, because football is all about the fans. Yeah, the football players are there doing their jobs, but technically they can't do their jobs to their full extent without the fans' atmosphere that they build. The atmosphere that the fans build then have a knock-on effect on the players. Like, if you have a daunting place like Anfield, and when they're in full volume before kick-off singing You'll Never Walk Alone, I'm sure that sometimes, like, has a effect and gives a motivational boost to Liverpool players, then also has an effect on the away players, and they start to feel a bit nervous because all of a sudden they're out here on a field surrounded by thousands and thousands of people wanting to cheer their team on and wanting to make their team feel like they have the upper hand in the game, which I think if you have without fans, then it will just be purely based and on, like, the players' abilities. Like, if you had to have a team like Liverpool playing against Norwich, maybe necessarily Norwich wouldn't play as well against the better set of players because there'll be no fans there to, like, cheer them on.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. Fans do, you know, are a massive part of the game altogether. Without fans, you know, teams wouldn't perform so well. And you know, when, say, you know, a team plays at home, they're more likely to win, and that is because of the fans' input. Without the fans there, you know, it's more 50-50. There's more chance of a draw. But because, obviously, at home you have more of the home team's fans, you know, you do get behind the players more, and the players, you know, in a way sort of see that you've got behind them, and then it works all together and everyone's happy. So, you know, it's something quite amazing, really, but...
And then also, if you're playing behind closed doors, then all of a sudden, you're opening up again the costs of the ground, which some teams can't really afford to do without having any fans there buying tickets and putting money towards the actual running of the club and being able to open all the stands up. Because all of a sudden, if you play behind closed doors as well, you're putting people like all the stewards out of their jobs on a match day. Like, even though the clubs like Brighton have said that they'll pay their match day staff for the rest of the season, and even until the fans are back in, they'll carry on paying them. Still, if you're playing behind closed doors, you're then having the running costs of the ground for like the floodlights, the lights in the dressing room, all the electricity bills and everything. And the players probably want music whilst warming up as well. And it'll feel like a completely different space, and the money, like, there won't be as much money that clubs will have to then spend in the next transfer window, because they've had to use it to run the ground on match day without any fans, and the stewards there, they're going to have nothing to do.
Oh, no, exactly. When I was younger, I went on the pitch at the Amex, and you do just look round, you know, all the floodlights and everything, but no one in the seats, and it looks so empty. And, you know, it'll have a massive old effect on what happens, because it does look empty. You know, you can tell somewhere like, say, Anfield, where there's, like, so many seats, and the atmosphere is always so good, that, you know, there wouldn't necessarily be that amazing, you know? The spirit of Anfield wouldn't be there at all. Because it will look and will be empty. So, you know, it's an interesting topic, which it can be said in two different ways, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and then, like, fans do have a knock-on effect, as I've just said. Fans are, like, the 12th man on the pitch, as people say. They are the 12th man there to improve their team. And this isn't Premier League related, but still football related. But there's an interview with the Tranmere owner, and they're almost going under, they are. And they said that during this time, they need to do some work on the pitch. And they put this pot of money together to do the work on the pitch. But now they're going to have to use that pot of money to keep the club alive, and to keep the club actually being a football club, and to keep them running before they go under. And if they go under, that would just be dreadful, with them not being able to bring the money in from the fans on a match day. And, like, let's say you go down to non-league clubs, even they've been suspended, those games. But if and when the Premier League doesn't carry on until a later date because of the mass gatherings, but non-league football still goes ahead, a lot of fans and a lot of people have to go down and support their local non-league team, because they just won't have the money to carry on during this crisis.
Oh, no, exactly. And I think, you know, if the top 4 leagues were postponed, you know, for quite a while, but, say, the non-league leagues weren't, I think these non-league teams would make an absolute butt ton of money, because of, you know, how many different fans would be going there. Say there's Manchester, you get Manchester United, Manchester City fans all going down to, say, you know, somewhere near even Salford, to watch a non-league team. And, like, those teams would make so much money, and, you know, might even be able to bring in some better players the season afterwards. So I think, you know, something like that could benefit non-league teams more than Premier League teams, or Football League teams. Because it could, help them a lot. Like, a lot.
Yeah, well, even some League 2 teams and League 1 teams, they might not even be able to carry on through this. It's not just like non-league teams that are going to struggle. There'll be some professional teams that struggle to make it through this as well, which I think is really sad. But it's got to happen. It's the right thing to do to stop the spread of it, and it's the best thing to do. But going back to the Premier League now, just quick before we end this section, if you were part of the Premier League board and you made the final decision on what happens to this Premier League season and what you would do in the future, what decision would you make and why would you make it?
That could be a very interesting talking point.
Yeah, so what would you do then?
I don't...
If it's just down to you and nothing else matters, no one else's input matters, you do what you think is right for the Premier League.
Right. We all know I'd null and void it. I don't want Liverpool winning the league.
Well, no, but if you had to be unbiased, what would you do?
Well, personally, I would, obviously bring up the top 2 teams in the Championship and play with 22 teams. Because, then, obviously, they'd be able to something. You'd be able to, carry on, while promoting teams and, basically get them through the time, give them the money, and there'll be a Premier League side, which basically could be the dream for a team like Leeds, which haven't been in the Premier League for, a number of years. So, if, think about it this way. If, our team was, say, in the Championship, and the decision was to null and void the whole league, and that no one got promoted, no one got relegated, we'd be mad, Obviously we'd be mad. It's an annoying feeling. But if even, say, we was third or something like that, like Fulham, and the Premier League was null and void and, 2 teams went up, we wouldn't like it. We wouldn't necessarily take it as easily as we're expecting everyone else to. So if we take it, or if we would take it, obviously there'd be something wrong, because it's like everyone wants to play in the Premier League. There's only 20 spots, and only 20 teams can play every season. So when another team, say in third, isn't able to, and they've worked so hard throughout the season, and they're, say, a point off the top 2, but they still have the chance to get to the Premier League through the playoffs, you're going to want to. But if then, say, only the top 2 teams get promoted, that's where the issue happens, and it does get annoying.
Well, yeah, so personally for me, it's clear to see that the Premier League is not going to return on the 4th of April. I think that's a clear thing to see, that it's not going to return there. So I think it's worth just put out a statement that it's not going to return by the 4th of April. It won't return probably until late March, early June. So maybe, tell the players now, let them go on, their mini holidays, but only, obviously, not to foreign countries and stuff. They'll have to stay in England, but take their breaks from football for a couple of months like they would do in the summer. And then when it comes to the time where it's all calmed down in late May, early June, restart the Premier League season, play the last, 8 or 9 games, carry on all the cup competitions, and then stop when the season's done, wait about 3 to 4 weeks, wait about a month later, let the clubs make their signings and get them into their squad, and then around late September, maybe beginning of October, depending on how long it takes for the season to finish with all the cup competitions, then start the next season from there, have the 3 promoted teams from the Championship and the 3 relegated teams, start the league and just cram more games into a shorter period of time.
Yeah, no, definitely. What you could also actually do is hold a sort of mini tournament in a way. And what you do, you get the top 3 teams from the Championship, or you kind of like do the playoffs where you get 6th versus 3rd, 4th versus 5th, and they kind of like do a like a Europa League qualifier, something like that. And the top team, the team who wins that, goes in to another tournament where it'll be the bottom 3 from the Premier League versus, obviously the top 2 from the Championship, plus the team who won that sort of like qualifier. Make them all play in one massive group, and then the 3 teams at the top of that group go up or stay up.
Yeah, so are you suggesting a bigger version of the relegation playoffs you get in Germany and France?
Yeah.
So I think that's quite a good idea to do that. And so the team, I think in France, the team in 18th, and then the team in either 1st or 2nd, they'll play each other in a relegation/promotion playoff. Now, let's say if the team they're playing in the division below won that game, then the team from the top division who was playing would then get relegated, and the team from the 2nd division would get promoted. So I think that's quite a good idea that you suggested there, but I need to do it in a bigger group format.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I think it would work, and people would be happy, and then, it'll determine who goes up and who stays down. Or who goes up and who goes down. Or who even stays up as well. So it could work both ways.
Yeah, and then just cram more games into a shorter amount of time for next season.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll move on now to how to fix Aston Villa.
Now, here's a very controversial talking point, and it's how to fix Aston Villa. Obviously, Aston Villa spent a lot of money at the start of the season, and they made 12 new signings in the summer. Obviously now they're sitting 19th in the Premier League table with potentially no more games left. So what does that mean? It means that something's not worked, and it must be the gelling together of the team. Because they had such a good potential, and their team is very good, Tom Heaton, many years Premier League experience. Wesley, good on-form striker, scored many goals for Aston Villa this season. And someone like Jack Grealish, who was kept into the squad. But it is a matter of time before Villa do go down if they are thinking of relegating the teams in the bottom 3. But what do you think?
Well, I was looking at their squad today, and I was just going over how many signings they've made. I was looking through their squad and I was thinking, how many of these players who are as backups, or even some as first choices, how many of them are Premier League quality and can actually help them, if they get any injuries, or just if generally they're just Premier League quality and have the right amount of experience. I'm looking at places like left back, and you have people like Matt Targett there. Don't get me wrong, he is a good left back, but is he necessarily good enough to be where Villa were ambitioning to be at the beginning of the season?
No, absolutely. They do have many not Premier League proven players. someone like Tammy Abraham, which, obviously they only had on loan last year, but he's gone off to Chelsea and scored, over 10 goals, over a dozen of goals?
Yeah.
So, obviously he's doing well, and if Aston Villa could have held on to him, I think they would have been doing a lot better than they are now. Striking partnership of Tammy Abraham and Wesley could have worked.
Yeah, well, the acquisition of Samatta, he looks to be a very, very good signing for them. He looks to have been in fine form since he's joined Aston Villa in the January transfer window. But again, you're looking at people that they signed like earlier on in the season, like Danny Drinkwater. Again, realistically, is he good enough? Pepe Reina, yeah, he was a good keeper in his prime and in his earlier years of his career. But now at 38, is he good enough to be playing in the Premier League? And you have people like Conor Hurahan. Yeah, he's a good player, but if you look at him, don't get me wrong, he is a very, very good player, and I'd happily have him as a backup. But should he necessarily be like first choice in the Premier League?
Oh no, not at all. I think they could do so much better with the money that they've got as well. So I want to remind you, Aston Villa last year did actually get their last parachute payment. So there's still quite a lot of money they'd have. And then obviously came up, so they had an extra 100 odd million, say, from the Premier League to spend on players. And really, they brought in Tom Heaton and Wesley.
Yeah,
the two
well,
standouts.
I think they could have been more careful with the money they had. Like, they could have maybe spent the same amount of money, but on better quality players. And, like, spending more 20, 30 million on better quality players to then improve their chance of survival. Whereas they spent over 100 million on lots and lots of different players. Yeah, all good signings, some better than others, but I don't think they necessarily thought at the time, like, what happens if, like, these signings go wrong? We spent 100 million on players, on lots and lots of different players. Like, are they all going to gel? Do they all have the same playing style? Do they all fully suit, like, their way of play? Whereas if they spent less money, if they spent the same amount of money on less players, that they did a checklist on all of them, like, they suit the playing style, they have the ambition, they have the fight if we're in a relegation battle, they can show pride, they show loyalty. I don't know if all of the players they signed in the summer had all of those in their locker to then enable them to boost their chance of survival.
No, exactly. I think if you have a look at Sheffield United, actually, they kept the same squad, really, for most of the season. It was only in, say, winter they signed, Sanderberg and other players to go along with him. But they didn't really spend much money, and at all. Which is why I think they're doing so well, because that team that was in the Championship gelled together. And then, obviously, they've come up to the Premiership, and they're still gelled. Meaning that, basically, they have what, say, Aston Villa didn't do. And going back to Aston Villa, actually, with their spending over 100 million, last season you saw it happen to Fulham, how they spent over 100 million. Jean-Michel Seri, players like that. Got two new goalkeepers. Brought in a new left back, Joe Byron, I think it was. And they just spent so much money on, say, players who weren't necessarily Premier League proven. Some of them played Championship football, some of them played Ligue 1. And I think they went down, second to last as well. So you do see it happen, and it's just kind of the way the club's owned and the club's run. Because if it's not run well, then they'll spend too much money and it'll all go to plot.
Well, yeah, it's all about, when you get promoted, it's all about finding that right balance of, like, keeping the core group of players together, but then, look, they've just got promoted, but then also bringing in, like, around 3 to 5 players that are Premier League quality and can boost your chances of survival. Like, you saw teams like, well, for example, if you take Brighton as an example, when they went up, they kept their main core group of players together. You bought in those extra players you need, like, for example, Matty Ryan, you bought in. We bought in Jose Izquierdo, bought in Jurgen Locadia. Yeah, fair enough, he didn't work out, but it's still, like, you're still keeping together those core group of players and players you've identified have played well. And also Ezekiel Scalotto, yeah, again, not the best signing. You're still seeing him. He's putting in decent performances in recent weeks for Brighton. And it's all about keeping the core group of players together for as long as possible. We've seen it with Norwich this year. They try to keep all of their core group of players together and not make any signings thinking, oh yeah, we'll keep these group of players together and they have like the connection with each other and know how we play, then lift us up. But they didn't inject the right amount of Premier League quality into their squad. And then, as you said, you see it with Villa and Fulham. You bring in too many players, just get rid of like all the team morale and everything. All of that goes down. Not all the players gel. Not all the players know like necessarily how each other play and what type of balls they want to receive and stuff like that. And then you just completely collapse.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I think you've got to keep the right amount of players, spend the right amount of money, and you should be fine in Premier League survival.
Yeah, so I think we should wrap that up there.
Yeah.
And move on to your correspondence. Okay, so moving on to your correspondence now. We've got a couple of questions this week, and we've got time to answer 2 of them. So the first one here is from Maluka, and he says, what if nothing will change? Will the Premier League completely stop?
Well,
good question. But as we addressed earlier on in the podcast, that this will eventually die down, and before you know it, this whole virus thing will probably go on for the whole year, but next year this will have all died down and everything will be back to normal again. So personally for me, I can't see the Premier League completely stopping for a longer period than 6 months.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think also the media hype will die down. This say coronavirus will last about 12 months. It won't last 12 months. It'll last many, many years. It's just that the media hype will last about 6 months. You know, say a vaccine will be made. They're putting the pressure on the doctors and scientists to make a vaccine within 18 months. Which, think about this, a virus that was, say, found in 2000 would only, say, have just been completed. A vaccine would have just been completed, around about today. Because it does usually take a long old period of time. 18 months isn't necessarily enough time for these scientists to find, say, the perfect vaccine, and then for it to actually work, because obviously they've tested it on mice and rats and it's worked, but mice are very different to humans. Their organs work differently and everything works differently. The hearts are smaller, all the regular, normal stuff.
Yeah, well, he said it, and I just want to say it as well, because I don't think any of us could cope without any football matches. Like, this weekend, I genuinely realised how much my life revolved around football. It was really, really boring. And I don't think I can go on without any football matches for as long as, until next year. So I think the Premier League will be back, and all football will be back in at least 6 months' time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Absolutely nothing to worry about. It'll all be back to normal.
And then moving on to the final one. I'm sorry if I pronounced this wrong, but Ihaxti666 has said, what will happen to Liverpool if the Premier League is cancelled? So sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but personally for me, if the Premier League is cancelled, then I don't think Liverpool should be given the Premier League, as it's still mathematically possible for Man City to overtake them. And UEFA have confirmed this week that if the Premier League is cancelled, Liverpool will not be given the Premier League trophy.
I think it's the right thing to do. I know there's so many points ahead of everyone else, but as you say, it is still mathematically possible for Man City to come in and swoop it off them. So I think it's the right thing. It's kind of like what they're doing in Germany, actually, where they're not giving any trophies to anyone at all. So I think it will work, hopefully. Obviously there'll be annoyed Liverpool fans, 'cause, let's say our team was at the top of the league, about to win it for the first time in 40 odd years.
Yeah.
And then it's all cancelled and called off, and we don't get given the title. Obviously, we're going to be annoyed, but you can't live your life being annoyed. So
yeah, well, I think it's just not fair if Man City can still. Well, obviously, it's not going to happen, but it's not fair if Man City is still mathematically possible to overtake Liverpool. Because like I said earlier on in the podcast, Arsenal are still mathematically able to get relegated, but they're not going to relegate Arsenal, are they? They just won't do it. So if you're going to award Liverpool the Premier League title when they've not mathematically won it, then not relegate teams such as Arsenal and Brighton and Newcastle and teams like that. You're not going to relegate them if it's not mathematically possible. So I just think it's not fair for Liverpool to be awarded the Premier League title.
No, exactly.
Yeah, well, anyway, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. We hope the audio is all okay. And as you said, we're not doing it in the same room. So we hope that's all okay. I think we're going to aim to get one out within the next 2 or 3 weeks as well, just to keep you, just stop you from being bored and to stop us from being bored.
Yeah, no, so, thank you for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.